in 3, in 2.
Hello, everyone. This is Chris Hogan. You are listening to Tampa Home Talk. I'm the author of the new book, Retire Inspired, which will be available on January the 11th.
Welcome to Tampa Home Talk with your host, native Tampa real estate girl, Katrina Madewell, a full-time, passionate, out-of-the-box thinker, love for home ownership kind of realtor with over 21 years of combined mortgage and real estate experience. Tune in every week at this time for expert advice on everything you need to know about home ownership, finance, maintaining great credit, building wealth, and making your everyday life better, and how you can be financially successful today and tomorrow. Remember, love where you live or let Katrina fix it. Now, here's your host of Tampa Home Talk, Katrina Madewell.
Hello, welcome to Tampa Home Talk. Thanks so much for chiming in today. I'm your host, Katrina Madewell. We're glad to have you with us. If it's your first time ever catching us, we have a treat in store for you today with today's show. And if you're a regular listener to the show, thanks so much for coming on back. We have our guest author, Chris Hogan, with Dave Ramsey's office. He wrote the new book, Retire Inspired, in case you missed the beginning part of the show. That book is set to launch January 11th, 2016. Welcome to the show, Chris.
Well, hello. Thank you for having me.
We also have Kevin Campbell. He's with Florida Fiduciary Wealth Management, actually sitting in, and he's going to join us for the latter part of the show. Welcome, Kevin.
Thanks for having me, too.
So, Chris, your office has been so generous to send me a pre-release copy, and I've enjoyed reading this. Almost finished with it. Was hoping to get done with it before I talked to you on the show, but I've highlighted and mocked up so many really cool things in the book. The introduction, I think, really is a fantastic place to start. And you talk about your background where you were like a financial coach, and you talked about a blue-collar guy that really he worked in the military. He was in early 40s, and he basically no longer had to work. So you talk about in the beginning part of the book where, you do it because you want to, not because you have to.
That's right. Well, it was one of those things. It was a game changer for me to meet this gentleman who was 41 and had hit enough money put away that he no longer had to work. And so here he was about to take some trips around the world. And I remember looking at him realizing this guy had all his hair, all his teeth. How on earth could he retire? And that was my moment, my wake-up call to start to understand retirement has nothing to do with your age. It has everything to do with your financial numbers.
And, so I'm just curious, Chris, because I'm 41. So if I were to retire right now, what would that number need to look like? Or what was an idea in this particular case? How was that number to carry him for the rest of his life?
Well, he was situated and he had some seriously diversified investments. He had done a 401k. He had some military TSP, and he had just put away some money. And so for everybody in your lifestyle, it's going to be a little bit different. This guy was out of debt. He owned his home free and clear. He didn't have car payments. And so his requirement of what he was going to need to live on was significantly lower than what it would have been had he carried a mortgage and debt. And so a lot of people want to know the number. They want to know how much it's going to take. And so I put together a tool. It's called the RIQ, the Retire Inspired Quotient, which helps people start to understand and ballpark how much am I going to need to be able to live the retirement I want to live.
I love that. And I love the whole premise of your book, Chris, that it's not an age. It's not an age. It's a financial number.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I read in the book that I really enjoyed reading because, I learned something, from this, but you were talking about how, the age that people are living, not only is it longer, but the retirement age, like that number, the magic number that people talk about, is because it was an age that Social Security allowed you to retire.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's exactly right. So many people think, that something magical happens on the 65th birthday. And, now what it is that's where you can start to get Social Security, and you actually can get that at 62. But what I tell people is, listen, I want you to pull back and look at this and see it for what it is. And when you start to drill in and start to understand it, you know that if you wait till age 70 to get your Social Security, you're actually going to get paid out a little bit more money. And so I want people just to walk into this process with our eyes wide open. So many people wander into retirement. I want people to start to get intentional, know what's at stake, and then understand some steps to take to get there.
Some of the things that really resonated with me in your book, Chris, was you were talking about your time that you had with your grandparents when you were young, how they were never rushed, they were never too busy, they were never in a hurry, and it was because they had the time and the space and the energy and the financial ability to really be present. And I think in this day and age of social media and cell phones, a lot of us don't know what that is.
Well, you're absolutely right. And I think the gift of time is an incredible gift. And I think when I look back on my childhood and growing up and hanging out with my grandparents, just the valuable lessons that I learned. These are memories that are near and dear in my heart. And they're also things I try to pass on to my own 3 kids. But I think as we start to look at this, I want people to be more intentional. We all love our families. We get up and leave the people we love the most to go out and work so we can provide for our family. But I want us to also understand that we have to provide for ourselves, and that's in the form of retirement, to be able to look at this and truly understand what's at stake.
Another real eye-opening thing, Chris, when I read your book, it said by 2030, Social Security is going to be out of money. Completely out of money. And not only did they move that age back.
Now, the calculations and the way it looks, I mean, it's in serious jeopardy. And a lot of people out there are counting on Social Security as their only source of income. And so for me, that's another one of those wake-up call moments. Now, I'm sure the government, they're going to figure out something on how to do that and hopefully can fix it with the right leaders in place. But the key is that we can't wait and we can't leave it in the hands of our government. Your retirement is too important and it's too vital. So we have to take care of ourselves by understanding what's at stake and then working a plan.
Yeah, they can't manage money. They just print more. So that's so right on time.
You're absolutely right. I told someone not long ago, I said, listen, this government has proven time and time again that it can't count. And so what I don't want to do is count on them for my retirement future.
I was looking at a couple of things that I want to point out in the book, too. You were talking about vacation being more of a state of mind than a destination. And then, right over on the next page, and I have a son that's 21. He just started the police force. So I'm talking to him about this, going, hey, put away 15% of your income. You have no debt. You have nothing. You haven't even bought a house. 15% of your income now. And when you're out of the police force, you'll be a millionaire. And it says, when you're 25 and reading this, let me ask you something. Which tastes better? A $5 cup of coffee today, cup of coffee. Okay, so Starbucks, Dunkin' Donuts, whatever, or a cool $500,000 at retirement. And I love that. I always use the Starbucks example, not to throw them under the bus, but there's a lot of things you can waste $5 on.
You're absolutely right. But I think the principle of what you just taught and was talking to your son about is one of those things that if that can stick, if he can start to understand that, then it's a game changer. And it doesn't mean necessarily, Katrina, that people can't enjoy a cup of coffee or can't do something.
That's right.
The problem is our mindset these days is that we want to do all the things we want to do all the time. And if we don't take care of some basics, it's going to actually end up hurting us in the end. I tell people, regret weighs a lot later in life. I want people to grab a hold of hope because it can lift us places.
Well, I think, so many people, like even me, I was thinking about it a little bit, but not really planning for it or anything until I read your book. So it's been a real eye-opener. And I just see a lot of 20 and 30-somethings reading your book, Chris, when it's out, going, wow, yeah, he's talking to me, and I don't want to be the old person eating dog food.
That's right. Well, and I think for people that are even a little bit older, I want them to understand that it's never too late to do something.
Yes.
You can even scale back on how much you're eating out or focus more on getting out of debt, and then now you can invest that. I mean, imagine if you have a house payment right now and you got intentional and attacked it and got it paid off. Let's say you are behind in retirement, but with that paid off home, you were now able to take your mortgage payment and put it all toward investing for your financial future. That's a way for you to catch up ground. But what we don't want to do is go out and grab more debt while we're trying to build wealth. That's two opposite ends of the spectrum. So I want to encourage people to budget, understand where your money is going, and I want you to boss your money around.
Right.
Tell it where to go and when it's allowed to leave.
I always tell people, if you don't do that, then your money's going to go wherever it wants to do. It's going to do what it wants to do if you don't tell it what to do.
I love that, Katrina. And another thing, especially this time of year, as you start to look around, everybody's got a plan for your money if you don't.
Oh, yes.
Every store, every mall, every restaurant.
That's all the time. That's called marketing.
That's exactly right. And listen, marketing efforts out there are good these days. I taught my boys this about commercials. I said, boys, listen, commercials are trying to get you to buy stuff. They try to make you feel bad about what you have or what you don't have, so you go out and buy it. And so I'm trying to teach them contentment, where they understand, and yes, it's okay for kids to want, but when we're adults, we've got to be grown up to tell a want it needs to wait.
The bigger picture is, Chris, you're teaching your kids how to block those subliminal messages that are in the commercials. Whether you realize it or not, it's there. Like they're talking to your kids, and you can have your kids be smart enough to be aware of those things, or you can just let someone else talk to them.
Well, you're absolutely right. And we either teach our kids or we allow the world to teach them. And another thing that I'm doing is we're teaching them, just like you did with your son, the value of saving, the value of that. And so I remember it was about 3 years ago, I took my boys that opened up their own savings account. And they're so excited when their savings statement comes in the mail. And so another thing we do is we save up and they put a deposit into their savings account once a month. And so on the 15th, they go down and pay themselves for the future by making that deposit. And so those little lessons are great for kids, but they can be invaluable for us as adults.
The other thing, too, Chris, is, we have, I always say my oldest one, the one that's 21, he came with the package. He was 8 months old when I met my husband, and we have 3 together. I think they're similar to your kids' age, but they're 15, 12, and 9. And it's just interesting because you think so much that they're not listening. And then, when now the 21-year-old has his own life and his own job and his own career path, and he's coming back going, hey, Mom and Dad, let's talk about that again. Let's talk about that conversation we had with retirement and what I should be doing.
I love that, because you're absolutely right. They do watch us. And it's intentional, it's got to be important for us to be intentional with the steps that we take. And I love hearing a 21-year-old wanting to know more, coming to you to ask. And that's great parenting, and it's also a great opportunity for your son.
And I think, me, myself, and many, even the person listening, you're thinking that they don't listen, but then all of a sudden there's that pivotal moment when they're an adult and you realize, wow, they really did listen,
That's right. And it's really important. It is. And I think that's where we just have to keep repeating it, talking with them. And I don't think we have to have economic summits when we talk to our kids. It's just helping them understand the 3 categories. They want to spend, they want to save, and they need to give.
Absolutely.
And those 3 categories, I think, can help set them up for the future.
So can we talk about inheritance? Because I know you touched on this several different times during the book. I know when Dave talks on there, he talks about it. People that don't have that financial mind or at least any type of budgeting skill at all, and they come into a windfall of money. You talked about one where the guy got $150,000 from his grandparents. Another one was like $400,000, and the statistics show what they're broke within 5 years.
If that long.
If that long.
And the same can be said for even Powerball winners and lottery winners. If you don't have a plan, you're going to blow through money so fast. And so with an inheritance, if you're fortunate enough to be able to receive an inheritance from your parents or your grandparents or great-grandparents, what you don't want to do is squander that opportunity. You want to kind of look at that and really start to have a game plan for it. And I encourage people to use what I call the pie graph approach, which is, number one, whenever you come into some money, I want you to put it in a money market account and let it just sit. I want you to let it sit so you can calm down, take a deep breath, and then let's start to have a plan for this money. We've already said everybody else has a plan for it if you don't. And so when you do that, what I want you to do is start to understand there's a dollar amount that I can give of that. There's an amount that I need to use toward attacking debt if I have any. And there's also an amount I can use to really help myself with retirement savings. But then there also needs to be a small sliver of it that you actually enjoy. And I think when you use the pie graph approach, you're actually going to make progress in multiple areas.
Oh, yes. And we're going to come back to that in a second. I want to touch on the opportunity costs versus risks. And I really would like to read this one little paragraph from the book, if that's okay with you, Chris, because
Sure.
it talks about the car payment. So, let's just talk about the 20, 30, 40-somethings with a car payment right now. And you say it's something most Americans can identify with. If you're thinking about buying a car on payments, consider what else you might be able to do with that money every month. So since we're talking about retirement, let's say you could make $500 monthly car payments, or you could choose to make that $500 monthly contribution to your retirement plan. 10 years later, if you had chosen the car, you would have lost the earning potential of the tens of thousands of dollars and the car if you still had it. It would need to be replaced. If you had invested the money instead, you'd be sitting on an extra $105,000 or more in your retirement account after those same 10 years. By choosing the car, you're choosing not to have $105,000 in 10 years. Different people have different priorities, but I can't imagine not having $105,000. So I want to talk about that for a second. Do you think that people actually, they don't realize that that $5,000 can actually turn into $105,000 in 10 years? Do you think that's the bigger
I agree.
picture?
I don't think people understand the power of compound interest. I don't think people understand the power of making small, wise choices, the impact it can have for the future. I tell people all the time, you've got two financial best friends, time and compound interest. What you want to do is to allow those two to work on your side. So the sooner you start to put some money in and we leave it alone, give it time to grow, it's going to grow for you. And it's going to do a lot more things for you in the future than it did right now.
Another thing you were talking about a minute ago, and I can so relate to this because, you talk about 70 being the full benefit for Social Security. And, you have somebody like me that has definitely learned to budget for sure, but I'm very much about living for the now as well. So I think, if I don't make it to age 70, then none of this matters. So I'm the type that has to plan in those regular trips and vacations and stuff because that's fulfilling to me, And my husband and I just got back from a 2-week cruise in the Eastern Caribbean, and we saw so many places. And we just commented that, when we were in San Juan, we hiked to I'll probably mess up the name, but the El Niño National Forest of the Caribbean. Some of those hikes were kind of long. And a lot of the elder people we saw completely either didn't go or they were extremely winded, barely able to make it back. And my husband and I are of the mind frame that, look, we'd rather do a lot of that stuff now and have that quality time with our kids and our grandkids later than to, wait to travel and do things when we're older and we don't have, our body can't do what it could do at 40.
Well, I think it really boils down to really personal preference.
Right.
And I think the biggest thing is obviously as you start to see those things and you understand the things that excite you and the things that you want to do, I don't think there's anything wrong doing some of that while you're also taking care of your financial future. The danger is that when people live totally in the now, where they're doing everything they want right now and they're not preparing for the future, I think those people are setting themselves up to feel regret later on.
Absolutely.
Because they're going to look and see the missed opportunity. So it's a fine line, and it's an opportunity. You can live in the day without living for today and going all in.
Right. But, if you're putting 15% of your income away in a retirement, you have no debt, and you've got that line item on your budget because you've managed to not have any debt, live for the, take whatever that budget amount is and live for the now.
Oh, absolutely. Definitely use it and live in the now. Definitely enjoy it, especially if you're out of debt and you're taking care of business for your financial future. By all means, you've earned that right. But if you're somebody and you haven't done what you needed to and you're behind for your retirement savings, what I want you to do is learn a very, very crucial word, and that word is sacrifice. What I want you to do is to start to tell yourself no. Even though you might want to do it, what you're going to do is stay focused. Because one area, Katrina, that I don't think people are thinking about is if you get older and you don't have money to take care of yourself, you actually end up burdening either your kids or other family members.
That's right.
Because now they're having to take care of you. And I don't think a lot of people, if they were to think about it and look at it clearly, I don't think they would choose to be a burden. Now life happens to some people, and there's illnesses and changes of life and all that. But I'm talking about people that are now able to make a decision to do some things to make sure they're not a burden to their family or their kids down the road.
So this, another part that you have in the book, Chris, that I wanted to reference because I think it's so relevant, especially for the person that, I grew up, my mom's a baby boomer, right? And she's never saved money. She spends money as fast as she gets it. She's coming to windfalls. There's nothing left. So, when you're somebody like me that's had to kind of break those habits that I saw growing up and learn how to budget and just learn how to do all this stuff, when you're actually able to save that full emergency fund, all this stuff, and then continue to save money, you almost get to that place where it's hard to part with it. So I'd like to talk to the person that maybe has those thoughts. So you use the example in here about the cookie jar. So if you put $100 in a cookie jar today, how it might only be $97 worth of stuff next year, $94 the year after that. And then that $100 is only worth really $40 technically in 30 years. And that's because stuff changes, right? You ask your parents, your grandparents, how much a gallon of milk was, how much a gallon of gas was. That's stuff people can relate to, and how different that is now versus 30 years ago.
Well, you're absolutely right. And the cost of things going up actually causes the value of our money to go down if it's in that cookie jar. And that's all because of one word, and that's called inflation. And so I want people to understand, really, that if you're not investing your money, if you're not investing it wisely, and you're not gaining growth on your money, then what happens is now your money it's going to be devalued later. So we actually have to sit down with an investment professional, somebody with the heart of a teacher, and we have a group of those called our endorsed local providers that help people on the investing side that can help you understand your options for investing to make sure that your investments are outpacing inflation.
Absolutely. The other thing, too, that I have to compliment you on, Chris, because you did such an amazing job explaining it. So I think if, whoever you are, if you don't buy the book for any other reason than to understand Chapter 6 called The Investing Menu, you did a fantastic job really breaking everything down, explaining what things are. Because when you start talking about, mutual funds and the different types of bonds and all of those things, it makes the average or the lay person, it makes their eyes just gloss over. So you did a really good job explaining that stuff.
Well, thank you. Well, I found that we don't do things we don't understand. And so what I wanted people to have a baseline understanding. So when they go sit down and they talk to a professional, they can ask those questions. They can gain an understanding. Because when we start to understand stuff, we can realize how important it is. And so I want people to move into this area confidently. Statistics show we've got 15,000 people a day retiring. And that trend is supposed to, every day, and that trend is supposed to continue over the next 15 to 20 years. That's a lot of people moving in that direction. So we've got to make sure people understand what's at stake, why it matters, and then have a plan to be able to do it the way they've always dreamed.
So let's talk about the roller coaster, too, because you spent a lot of time on that in the book, the roller coaster ride. It was a fantastic analogy. So do you want to explain that a little bit? And then I'm going to pull some things I highlighted.
I talked about riding roller coasters and how they go up and they go down. But you know what? With my seatbelt on, I know it's eventually going to come around and it's going to stop and I'm going to be able to get out and move on. Well, I liken investing to riding a roller coaster. And that I want people to look at it and understand the stock market's going to go up and down and have all these twists and turns. But if I'm riding it and I know the plan and I'm investing for the long haul, I can withstand the twists and the dips and the turns. Why? Because I'm focused on the long haul, and because I'm diversified and I'm talking to an investment professional, I actually have my seatbelt on when I invest because I've got good people around me and I'm also working a plan that actually works.
And one of the things that you commented on was when the market goes down, continue investing because you're actually consistently investing. You're buying things on sale at that point.
That's exactly right. That was a game-changing moment for me when I had my investment professional explain that to me. I was getting upset. The market was going down and all this, and I was still putting my money in my 401k and all these other things. And he looked at me and he goes, "Hey, you're just buying it on sale." And it dawned on me. That's exactly right. If I continue to buy it at my steady rate, now when the price goes back up, I actually own more because I was buying it when it was down. And so that kind of awareness kind of rechanged my focus and allowed me to stay really intentional on the plan that I'm working. And now I'm not deviating from that. I'm clear because I understand how it works. And that's what I wanted more people to have, was that aha moment when they read the book.
And another thing too, Chris, and I love like when I'm sharing an example or something and I've made a mistake, I love throwing myself under the bus or under the train or however you like to word it, because I think if people respect you and they admire you, they have, they can relate to the fact that you've made mistakes too, right? Because everybody does. Not everyone's perfect. And you talked about, making stupid decisions in the moment. And several places throughout the book, you reference that, look, your retirement dream can be just one step away from stupid, and it could be something you accidentally did. You talked about the couple that, got out of debt and then went out and financed a sailboat. There was a lot of really cool things in there. And you also talked about when you bought some AOL stocks.
Yes, it was my dive into the stock world many, many years ago. And the stock was growing and it was doing well. And, of course, I thought I was a genius because it kept going. And then what set in, actually, was this lack of awareness. I didn't really understand what I was investing in, but it was growing, and it finally got up to a point, and then there was a plunge. And so I lost all of that money, and it was over a $20,000 mistake with all the growth and everything later.
Yeah.
And so for me, it was the importance of understanding. You can't go into this investing stuff blindly, but you have to be aware, and you got to be talking to people that actually understand it so you can know when to make some small changes, because I found that small tweaks can lead to big results later.
So let's say in this particular example, Chris, in the book, you say that you put $2,500 into AOL shares. The next thing you knew, it was worth 10, then 15, then 20, then 25,000. Then you said, whoa, I'm going to put some more money in, that kind of thing. What do you suggest for the person that maybe is in that scenario? Maybe they're was the dot-com wave, right? Or whatever. Maybe they're riding a high of one particular stock and it just keeps growing. At what point, if they're listening to this going, wow, the diversification you're talking about really makes sense, and I don't want to be that guy. At what point do you think it's a good idea to take some of that stuff out and move it around, or like what do you suggest?
Well, I would tell them that as you invest, obviously, it's all based on risk tolerance. And so what I would encourage your listeners out there, if they're in that scenario, I want them to find an investment professional immediately. Don't make just a knee-jerk reaction. You need to make it well-timed, well-informed decisions. So get some information, get some guidance, and understand what your goal is for that money. If you're investing for the long haul, which is what I want people to do, which is 5 years or longer, what you want to do is to make smart moves. We don't want to make guesses, and we don't want to jump out of the way. And you mentioned a key word there, which is diversification, which simply means to spread around. When I diversify properly in my investing, what I'm doing is I'm kind of taking some risk away. Now, there's always risk when you invest money. There's a risk that you earn money, and there's a risk that you could lose money. But I want people to go into it understanding that and making sure they're making the right moves for their particular situation.
Another thing that you put in here, and I underlined it and I highlighted it, you said investing over the long haul is hard.
It is. I mean, it really is, because when you invest over the long haul, and that's 5 years or longer, what you want is to be able to, people want to see immediate results. And so what I want people to do is start to understand the calculators. Talk to your investment professional. Have them run some scenarios for you, because what I want you to do is to have confidence in what you're doing. And that's one of the things I feel these days. As I'm working and staying focused, I know the plan that I'm on works. And so I don't have to get caught up when the talking heads are on TV talking about the market doing this or doing that. I'm consistent because I'm clear on, I know exactly where I want to go and when I plan to arrive. And so it gives you this state of comfort that I'm just going to stay focused. And I'm also understanding that I'm one bad decision away from going backwards, like my people with the sailboat. So I need to keep my game face on and daily play offense and defense for my financial future.
And I love that you talked about, look, you really do need help from a professional. And it goes back to anything, right? Like for me, it's real estate. I can answer questions in real estate and see stuff a mile down the way that no matter how many properties you've bought, you can't compete with somebody like me that does it day in, day out, 1 million hours a week. We're very familiar with what's going on in the market.
You're absolutely right. When you connect with a professional, they not only know the terrain and the market in that area, but they also are aware of trends. And so they can guide you. A good professional can actually protect you from yourself. And they're also good to call and talk to when you have some of those questions. And so like you helping people with buying their home, you know how many people that I've talked to that have bought homes and they got bad advice from people or bad guidance, and that has cost them a lot of money over the years. And so my future is too important to me. My family's too important to me to leave it to chance. And so that's why I'm going to grab the opportunity and sit down and talk with professionals that have the heart of a teacher, which means they want to help you. They're not trying to just sell you. These people can actually be an asset and a benefit to your life.
I tell people, when they're looking at the real estate space and they're looking to buy something, I'm like, look, this is your biggest asset. It's going to be your biggest liability, and chances are it's your biggest monthly payment. So you need to trust the person you're working with, and if it's not me, that's okay. Make sure you do trust that person. And, many times we're looking at properties, and I tell people, you have to be the one comfortable, buying this house because you're the one making the payments and living in it, not me.
Well, you're absolutely right. And even though you want to get great guidance from people, ultimately the decision lies with you. And that's what I want. Too many people will interface with a professional and get some guidance, but they want to give the responsibility to the professional to make a decision. That's the wrong way. So you've got to own your decisions, but I also want you to be aware of the potential results. So talk to a professional, get good guidance, but ultimately it's your decision. And if you're married, I want you to make that decision with your spouse. Sit down, talk about it, and then don't make a decision until you're both in 100% agreement.
One thing I want to talk about real quick is you talked about what keeps people from sitting down with an advisor. And I love that you put this in the book because I think a lot of people they're definitely in one of these places. Either they have guilt and shame because they've had their head in the sand, pride, they feel like maybe they can do it themselves or whatever, feeling like it's too late to learn, some older people. And I saw some amazing, Chris, I love the stories that you shared throughout the book. People can really, really relate to that. Ignorance, cynicism. It's awesome. So I have to ask you another quick question because I know your time's coming to a close. When you were writing the book, what's one thing in the book that maybe you had to take out that you just absolutely loved? It could be a story or a piece of the book that maybe you had to take it out for one reason or another that you'd like to share.
Well, one of the things that I had to take out was obviously elaborating on my big pop story. That's one of the stories at the end where I talk about envisioning myself as a grandparent. And so I really went into detail about one of the dreams that I have for my kids and my grandkids. And so that's something I talk about at the live events. And I'll get an opportunity to weave that in somewhere. Maybe I'll do a blog post on my website or something. But overall, I had an absolute blast writing this book. I really feel like the information is going to help people because I have the heart. I want people to be able to chase their dreams, but I want them to live it as well. And so I think with the right information, with the right people, working the right plan can lead to the right destinations.
I love it, Chris. And, one of the other things you talked about too in here is, how financial advisors get paid, fee-based versus commission-based. And you put in there 12 amazing questions to ask before you ever hire a financial advisor. Yes.
I wanted to make sure people had information. I wanted them to be able to go in and have a knowledgeable conversation. And the amazing thing is this, is when you sit down with a professional, whether it's an endorsed local provider like yourself on the real estate side or an investment person, when you sit down with somebody that has the heart of a teacher, when you come out of there, you feel encouraged and you feel like you have hope.
Yes.
And a lot of people are scared to sit down with a professional because they think they're going to be judged or they think that it's going to go the opposite way. So it's so important to have the right questions, but it's more important to be asking the right person the right question at the appropriate time.
Here's the game changer for me too, Chris. I know that, obviously a lot of stuff comes with experience, but when you take somebody like me that has no debt, I'm maybe 3 years away from paying my mortgage, that's it. We've already started everything out. We're in baby step 6. When you get to that place and you're doing what you do, you're doing it because A, you love it. And B, I'm never giving anybody any advice that I wouldn't give my grandmother or my mother or my best friend. And I think when you come from that place and you're giving someone advice based on their needs, not yours, people feel that. They just connect with that in a way that most people can't. And I've seen too many times that real estate people over the years have given clients advice based on their needs because they need to close a deal.
That's right. Well, and you're absolutely right. It's the spirit around it and the heart of the person you're talking to. And I love the fact that you say that you're doing the things that you would advise your own grandparents to do. And when you do that, you have confidence, you actually have peace of mind, and you sleep better at night because your heart's in the right place and you're trying to help people. And that's the thing that's most important. People matter. And so with that, we've got to help people as best we can, give them the right information, give them the proper guidance so they can make the right decisions.
Well, Chris, I know we've already overextended on your time. I can't thank you enough for coming in to be my special guest for your new book, Retire Inspired. It'll be out in stores, on Amazon, on everywhere. You're actually going to be reading the book for Audible bookies like me, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Just completed that a few weeks ago. So people have an opportunity. They can pre-order the book now, but it will hit the streets on January the 11th.
Sounds great. Thanks so much for calling in today, Chris. I appreciate it. Thanks for the pre-release copy, Retire Inspired. It's an amazing book. It'll be out January 11th. If you haven't got it, order it online on DaveRamseySite.com, or you can call me, and we're going to give away 5 books. And our number is 813-777-1196. 813-777-1196. You can call or text. Let us know you heard Retire Inspired, and we're going to make sure to get you out a copy of the book when it's released.
Well, thank you so much for having me, and I appreciate your time.
Thanks. Have a good one.
You too. Bye now.
You've heard this before. Interest rates are at all-time record lows. But if your interest rate is 4% or above, you owe it to yourself to call Silverton Mortgage Specialist. Silverton is a direct lender, and the best part about this is that the entire loan process is handled in-house. From application to close, we do it all in the same building, which means that our loans close fast and our clients know what's going on every step of the way. Our contact info is located on TampaHometalk.com under Radio Show. What makes Silverton different? Products. We offer VA, FHA, USDA, and conventional loans pricing. Best rates with the lowest closing cost. Process everything in-house. It's handled right here and not outsourced to anyone that no one can reach. This way we can avoid surprises. Our people are simply the best, and we know you'll agree. What will closing Silverton Mortgage Specialist mean to you? A smooth process, real home loan value, and personal attention from real professionals. Silverton Mortgage Specialists are here to serve you. Visit TampaHometalk.com under Radio Show for all of our contact details. NMLS 109600 is an equal housing lender and Florida and Georgia residential mortgage licensee.
Curious what your Tampa home is worth? Here's an easy way to find out what homes like yours are selling for in today's market. Text the word value to 813-377-2775 for a free report on Tampa house prices. We'll send you a free report with up-to-the-minute statistics based on all homes for sale sold in your neighborhood over the last 6 months in all price ranges. To get your free report on Tampa Bay house prices, just call or text the word value to 813-377-2775.
Aaron Davis here, owner of Hillsborough Title, serving all of Tampa Bay. Our service, strength, and knowledge make us different. From Polk County to the Gulf, Pasco to Manatee, Tampa Bay, we've got you covered. Visit us on the web at thebesttitle.com. That's thebesttitle.com.
You're buying a house. Congratulations. So while you're worrying about the paperwork, leave the moving part to us. We're Woody & Sons Moving Company, a Florida licensed and insured mover, and we offer same-day written estimates. Plus, no sneaky mileage, stairs, or additional stop fees. All we ask is that you check out our great ratings on Google and Angie's List, then go to woodyandsons.com to learn more. Whether you need a full-service pack and move or some extra hands, at Woody & Sons Moving Company, we move you.
Welcome back. You're listening to Tampa Home Talk. I'm your host, Katrina Madewell. We had to take a real quick break from that exciting conversation we had with Chris Hogan at the beginning of the show. I had permission to read some of his questions, so I'm going to read through them, the 12 questions to ask a financial advisor before you ever hire one, and then we're going to hop on over to Kevin Campbell. He's going to help me pronounce Florida Fiduciary, wealth management correctly. I love making fun of myself. It's the best part of the show. But so the questions, and again, get the book. January 11th is when it comes out, but can you tell me about your experience as an investment professional? Number 2, how long have you done this type of work? Number 3, what type of clients are you looking for? Number 4, what is your general investment philosophy? Number 5, what is your approach to investing? Number 6, what do you think is best for your clients? Number 7, what is your outlook on customer service? Number 8, how will I have access to you for questions? Number 9, how often will I be able to communicate with you? Number 10, how are you compensated? Number 11, do you have any favorite funds? And number 12, do you personally invest in any of these funds? All excellent questions. And we had some stuff that Kevin and I were going to talk about, and I think we discovered in the planning meeting that it would be like another whole show to talk about those 12. So we'll have to do that on another day. But, hopping right along into that conversation and talking about where we were at, how does someone know how much they'll need or when they'll be able to retire? Because even in the book, it talks about, preparing for, like, if you have no debt, you still have to pay taxes and insurance. You're still going to pay healthcare costs, and there's no way to determine exactly what that's going to be. And Chris did a great job, like, determining what your retirement IQ needed to be. And I did it, but it was still like a little bit hazy. So we might have to have him back on again, or both of you back on again, to talk about that. So how do you know when you have enough, or when an older person may be saying, hey, do I have enough to retire? Or how much you're actually going to need if you're 20, 30, 40 something?
Well, the first thing that I always tell people is that your last day of work, that you walk out, that you make sure that you are totally debt-free. That's the first thing. Unless you're totally debt-free, don't even think about retiring. The numbers vary depending on who you talk to. You can have where you need 50% or 75% of your income as you're working for retirement. But also that depends on your lifestyle. I know people that live on Social Security that actually live below their means. So everybody's different. Totally depends on your lifestyle.
Sorry, just adjusting you a little bit there. So, and do you see that those lifestyles kind of scale down a little bit? Like, are a lot of people, is their plan kind of to have the house paid for and Social Security, which Chris talked about is not always a good plan?
Well, yeah, as far as Social Security, nobody really knows exactly when to take that. At 62, wait till 66, it goes higher. At age 70, it goes higher. So people say, well, if I wait this 4 years, I can make 6% return on my money. Well, a lot of people I've seen at 62, they take it. And the reason they take it, they go, well, I've put in all these years, I might as well get it because I don't know how long Social Security is going to last.
Or if they're going to be around. I mean, there's a lot of questions.
Yeah, and nobody knows how long that you're going to live. So there's really no black and white answer.
I had a lady, I just helped her. She just sold her home, and thank goodness she had it, because it was like the only asset she had. She lost her job. There was a whole bunch of like red tape, and she was trying for disability, and who knows if that was even going to come to light. And she was only like a year away from being able to collect retirement or Social Security, the earliest part. So for her, it was just an absolute dire need. You get those people that are the boomer age. Thank goodness she had her home, because it actually gave her something to live on until she reaches that age.
That's correct. Every situation's different.
And every year, is it a little bit more? Is that kind of how it's structured?
Yeah, they come out every year and they tell you if they're going to have a cost of living increase. Last year, Social Security did not give a cost of living increase, and a lot of times they tie it to inflation. Well, right now, you almost got deflation going on because you have lower prices besides healthcare and education. Everything else is kind of staying the same.
How do you help somebody like that, like in that scenario, Kevin, when you're thinking about them, and maybe they're walking away with just 20 or 30,000? Is there any way that you can help them try to invest that money somehow to stretch that time out, maybe even another year that they would collect Social Security?
It totally depends on their nest egg.
Right.
Yeah, what's their nest egg? If they don't have a nest egg, then that's just the way it is. If they have $1 million nest egg, then you can adjust accordingly.
One of the things that I loved when we talked about before the show, you said that you have like this whole questionnaire. It's a lot of pages, right, to kind of figure out where someone is?
Well, we've kind of narrowed down to about 7 questions. What it is, it's called an investment tolerance questionnaire, and we have everybody do it. The reason we do it is we have 23 sets of chromosomes, and everybody's risk tolerance is different.
And some of that should be based on age too, right? Age,
but some people can take a lot of risks. Some people can't take anything at all. I remember my grandmother, she was buying growth stocks at 88 years old because the market did not affect her. I remember calling her when that Exxon Valdez went down. I said, Grandma, your stock's going to go down because they got to pay all these billions of dollars to clean up. She goes, so what? It's only going to be 1 year's worth of earnings.
Yeah.
So it did not bother her. And I have other people that look at their account every day. And so it totally depends on your risk tolerance of what you need to invest in. So it's a model plan. So what we do is once you fill out your investment tolerance questionnaire, we put it into a computer model. The computer model comes back and says, this is where you need to invest. And we stay with it. And the reason is somebody can come back a year from now and look at it and they'll say, Mr. Campbell, are you following my desires of what I said? And we'll show it to them. And also it's a good accountability for us because we're going to make sure that we follow what they tell us to do.
Right. Do you find those change sometimes over time? Do those answers maybe change a bit?
The only time that we change it if they come back and answer different questions. Like say, for example, there's corrections in the marketplace. They say, well, I want to get more aggressive. Well, we come back and we have them fill out another questionnaire so we can put that into the computer model to show us where they should be.
Gotcha.
It sounds very simple, but it works.
Now, how often should someone be like, let's say someone's like, okay, I'm not going to overthink it. I'm not going to be one of those people that look at it every day, but I'm going to make sure I look at it enough. And then I'm going to make sure I meet with my financial advisor, my financial planner, regularly. What does that look like? How often should someone be looking at their own portfolio? And then how often should they be meeting with somebody like you?
You meet with your advisor when needed. Okay. So a lot of times if somebody's a nervous investor, you're going to meet with them more often. But they always should at least meet at year end. And the reason that you meet at year end, you want to see where you started and where you were. So you see your performance during the year. And then you want to compare what you have versus the indice that you're measured up against. For example, if you were 100% stocks, you want to see how you did versus the S&P 500. If you were 100% bonds, you want to see how you did versus the bond index. Or you can have a mixture of in between.
And, according to Chris, it's not a good idea to put all those eggs in one basket. And he shared some stories in the book about that. Feel the same way, I imagine, as a financial advisor?
Well, yeah, but it all comes back to the risk tolerance.
Right.
So if somebody has a low risk tolerance, you're not going to have a lot of fluctuation. And some people will come in and they think they have a high risk tolerance. So say, for example, somebody comes and says, I want big double-digit returns. And we explain to them, well, this could happen on the other side. So if you're looking for a 10, 20% return, are you prepared to have a downside of 10 to 20%?
Right.
And once we explain that to people, a lot of people go, no,
it's almost like gambling, isn't it, in a sense?
If you're looking for big returns, your timing has to be very, very good.
So this is a question because the interest rates are low, right? The feds are borrowing money at like almost 0%, relending it at record lows in the low 4s. With that being said, what do you say to somebody they're like, oh, you can't get 10% anywhere right now in this market?
Well, you can look over historical rates of returns of some particular areas. Some technology areas have done that well. Healthcare at the last 15 years has done very well. But it's hard to tell somebody that you're going to get this type of return.
Right, which you can't. No one can. I mean, it'd be like, I always tell people, like, when they ask me questions about real estate, they're like, oh, I want to buy at the very bottom of the market, and I want to sell at the very top. I'm like, look, that would be like you coming to me going, I want to buy this stock when it's the absolute lowest price on the penny, and I want to sell at the very high. You don't know. You can gauge it based on what you're seeing in the market, but you don't know. No one knows.
No, you don't, but there's always an old theory that comes true. Whenever there's panic buying, you want to sell. Anytime there's panic selling, you want to buy. But that pertains to stocks, bonds, real estate, art, wine, antique cars, whatever it is. You always want to go against the grain. You look at Warren Buffett.
Yes, good example.
He does not show up until things are really cheap. I mean, he wants to see disasters, and that's when he shows up.
Right. And that's a good plan. I mean, that's why somebody like that's loaded. They buy when everyone else is selling.
Yeah, but a lot of individuals do the exact opposite.
Right.
When things go rough, they kind of back away from their financial plan.
It's the flock they follow. Like they kind of do the school of fish. They do what everyone's doing.
They do. That's like wildebeest going over the Nile River.
So how do you determine what to invest in before and after people retire? Does that change?
Yes. It totally depends. It comes back to how much risk they're willing to take to get to that retirement. That's one thing. As you get older, obviously you want your money more conservatively because you do not want to go back to work. A lot of people, you ask 10 different advisors, they're going to give you
Of course.
To give you different answers. Well, you go back to the financial crisis, a lot of advisors said, well, you need to have 80% of your money in stocks. Then we had this massive correction. It affected people. That means they had to go back to work.
Right.
So never put yourself in that situation. Always know every investment has an upside and a downside. I don't care what it is. So know your downside to every investment you make, and the upside will take care of itself. And you say, well, savings account has upside and downside. And they go, what's that? Well, a savings account pays you nothing, but it's going to be there.
Right.
But you're going to
It's liquid.
But you're going to lose 2.5 to 3% of your purchasing power every year.
We talked about the cookie jar money, right? Same thing.
That's correct.
Inflation.
That's correct.
So what kind of protective measures can someone take for actually passing down the inheritance? Because this is a question you probably get all the time, I'm sure. It's something that if you've worked and saved and invested your whole life, you're really concerned with how your children may spend that money or use that money.
That's a great question. Well, number one, if you have substantial assets, they need to get with an attorney and set up a trust. And so if they're going to pass down X amount of dollars, they want to make sure there's parameters in there. But all of it depends on how you've raised your kids. And so know before you do this trust if your kids are responsible with their money. But we're seeing now...
Did you get the one bad seed? That no matter what you did, they're just not changing.
Yeah, but we're seeing inheritances right now being intercepted by nursing home and long-term care facilities. So people got to be aware of this, and you say, well, should I have long-term care insurance? Well, it's like any insurance. You really don't know the right black or white answer to this, but I'm a firm believer in long-term care insurance because right now, it costs you $40,000 to $60,000 a year, and people are living longer and so forth. So, I'm 53 years old. I have a long-term policy. If the reason is because you've seen what I've seen sitting in my chair, where people worked all their life, and hopefully that they were going to keep it themselves or pass it to their kids, is being wiped out because of long-term care facilities.
That's so unfair. There's a whole niche that's missing there, like in that whole market, like for in-home care, and that kind of stuff. There's a whole niche I just see missing.
Yes, there is.
So, what are your thoughts on the book? I know you're excited about it coming out.
This book?
Yes.
Well, I think Dave picked the right person.
Yeah.
Whether if it's succession planning or he's a great motivator, he's a great speaker, and he knows his knowledge. But remember, all this stuff is nothing but common sense.
And behavior.
Yes, and behavior. I mean, if you don't have the money, don't buy something. Okay? Stick with a plan and don't veer from it.
Grandma's philosophy. If you got the money, you buy it. If you don't, you don't.
Well, if you look for the people that lived through the Depression, they look at things a whole different way.
Yes.
And also, too, what we're seeing the early 30 generation going to be the biggest savers that this country's ever seen because they saw what happened to their parents.
Yes, lost their home.
And they borrowed money on to buy a boat, and they are saving. They're putting money in Roths. They're putting money in IRAs. And also, they're paying down their student loans. So
we'll need it because Social Security might be wiped out by the time they get to that age.
That's right.
So, Kevin Campbell, it's been awesome to have you on the show. You're an ELP or an endorsed local provider just like me. And so, you get the whole thing. In case you're someone that follows Dave, we get it. We understand it. We know how to do that. You're listening to Tampa Home Talk. I'm your host, Katrina Madewell. We're right about that time where we have to wrap up the show already, unfortunately. But we do have all of Kevin's information posted on our Facebook page, on our Twitter handle, on our website. So just hop on over to Tampa Home Talk, or you can search for it wherever you are. Tampa Home Talk will pop right up and we'll get you connected with Kevin. As always, you can call us and we'll introduce you to any one of our guests and give you their contact information. Thanks so much for tuning in with us today. Same time, same place next week. For this week, we're out. Hey, Katrina Madewell here. Just wanted to make sure you know how to reach us on our off-air number. If you'd like to connect with myself or any of our guests, you can call us at 813-377-2775. Again, this is Katrina Madewell, host of Tampa Home Talk, and to connect with myself or any guests we have on air, just call or text at 813-377-2775. 813-377-2775.